Hello, everyone, and welcome to Design Thinking, a beginner's guide to innovation. Some housekeeping to get started with. We're back into lockdown in large parts of the world and large parts of Australia again. So we are all online. We have a Zoom meeting here, and if you're new to Zoom, quick introduction to the user interface. You can switch your camera on and off in the bottom left-hand corner. You can use the chat functionality to communicate with me throughout the presentation if you have questions and you can't unmute yourself. If you have questions, we will have certain breaks throughout the presentation where you can unmute yourself and ask those questions if you're free to do so. Otherwise, pop it in the chat. And when you're not speaking, please mute yourself so you do not disturb the others listening to the presentation. Cool. A little bit to me. My name is David Hauser. I used to be industrial engineer and designer. I worked for 10 years in the international machine tool industry. I started my career in Germany and came to Australia as a design engineer for machine tools in 2011. I worked for industries that were ranging from cutting tool industry, automotive, aerospace, and the smart device industry. Customers of mine were suppliers of Samsung and Apple. A while back, while still in Germany, I certified as a trainer and coach for an organization focusing on disaster relief. I was team leader and trainer there for 10 plus years. And I'm really excited about helping people to grow, to learn new things. And at some point in my career, about 3 years back in my engineering career, I figured out that that was not really satisfying in the corporate world for me. So I decided to jump out of the corporate world, start THNK innovation, and dive deep into the startup community. I would call myself a dreamer, ideator, and innovator. I'm excited about creating awesome human experiences. And I am passionate about helping people to succeed and helping people to identify their superpowers with which they can make a difference in the world. That's enough about me. Let's jump to the presentation of the day, to the content. For the last 3 years, I'm very active in Silicon Beach, Australia's only nationwide startup community, which I took over fully now 9 months ago. And through my journey, I've seen a lot of motivated people in the startup world failing. In fact, 97% of startups fail, and most of them fail early. And there are several reasons for startups to fail. 23% of startups do not have the right team to run the business. A lot of us, like myself, we are more in the creative side of things. We come up with a lot of ideas, but running a business is often a different kind of animal. And I'm learning this myself on the fly, and I'm finding people that are helping me with that as well. 29% of startups fail because they're running out of cash. Some of them are running out of cash before they ever made cash. Some of them running out of cash after they got their first or second funding rounds. A big challenge for startups is to keep the cash flow going until they actually create revenue through products and services. But by far the largest failure rate is a lack of market need for the product or service. And that's basically playing right into running out of cash. Because if you do not have your market, your product and service matched to what people need, what people are happy to pay money for, then that will happen to you. You will be running out of cash rather sooner than later. And with design thinking, we're addressing exactly that problem, mainly identify what product and services are actually working in the market and what are people happy to pay money for. Because everything becomes easy when we have a procedure, a proven process. As I said earlier, there's no lack of ideas in the world. I have probably 10 ideas every day that I think are quite innovative, but it's all about taking action, testing the market, finding the right team, and finding the money to actually make those ideas happen. Because at the end of the day, it's only in innovation when people are happy to pay money for it. Otherwise, it stays an idea. So often, when we have big ideas, especially, and when we talk about startups, we're talking when we're talking about startups, we normally talk about big ideas. But wait a second, please. We're talking about big ideas, and when we have big ideas, audacious ideas, it's often seems to be very challenging when we do not have the skills, when we're not experienced entrepreneurs and founders. The end goal, making it happen, bringing it to reality, often seems to be far away, with a lot of hard work to get there. And it can be intimidating, and it can stop us from getting started at all, or with trying to make it easier by taking shortcuts, which often end up sabotaging the capability of implementing our ideas in the first place. But the good thing is, it does not have to be that way. Everything becomes easy when we break it down in individual steps, in smaller milestones to achieve. And that's exactly what design thinking is doing. We're taking it step by step with the initial idea until we have a running product validation in the market. We have verified that people are happy to pay for the product or service, and that there is enough market for the product and service to create sustainable business. And we do this with the 5 steps of having empathy for our target customers, target audience, defining who is our perfect target customer, who is happy to pay, and where we have the numbers to create sustainable business out of it. Then we ideate, and we come up with creative ideas how to address the problem for the people that we've empathized with. And only then we start building prototypes and MVPs that we can finally test. So everything becomes easy when we apply a step-by-step process, and that's what design thinking. It makes innovation easy for all of us, or easier for all of us. In other words, design thinking is your step-by-step execution or implementation plan to transform your idea into the next innovation. Good stuff. Do we have any questions until here from anyone? I see Philip Hayes joined us as well. Cool, and we just keep going. We have my guest. Sorry, I might not be able to turn my camera on and actively join the discussion. I will be listening though. Thank you, Mike, for the heads up. Please feel free to pop your contact details into the chat as well, and make some new friends on the way. I will share my LinkedIn later in the Q&A section of the presentation. But let's keep going then and have a look into the individual steps of design thinking. Vincent is asking, how many times do you need to go through the process before developing a prototype? We will get to that later, Vincent. I hope you can stay. Please drop me a line if you have to leave early, so I will answer the question before you have to leave. Otherwise, we will get to that probably in 20 minutes, if that's okay. Design thinking. We saw it in the previous slide. There were 5 steps: amplifies, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And when you Google design thinking, you will find different models of design thinking. One is the double diamond model that you see here, which is a quite good and valuable tool visualization of the process, because it gives you information where you are creative, where you use your creative capacities during empathy and ideate to come up with a lot of ideas, as well as showing the progress through the design thinking process. And another common model that you will find a lot in literature are the 5 hexagons, which was made famous by IDEO, some of the pioneers of design thinking from California, early collaborators of Apple. So those are the 2 most common models that you will find. Some other companies have their own models, which are varying in between 3 and 7 steps, but those 2 5-step models are the most common ones that you will find out there. And you will find, if you follow my work and Silicon Beach, THNK.innovation a little bit, you will find the loop model, which I like specifically because it does put some emphasis on the amplifies, define, and ideate part of the design thinking process, where we can actually save us a lot of money and pain by iterating our ideas on a small scale without spending a lot of money on building prototypes and testing them in the first place. And what we see in the startup world, especially when we talk to early stage founders, there's often what is often happening, that people are jumping with an idea straight into building quite complex prototypes without having verified what the customer needs are and defined what their ideal and perfect launch customer for a product or service is. So the double loop, or the loop model in general, visualizes quite tangible that there can be done a lot of designing, learning, refining of a product even before we actually start with building prototypes and MVPs. And that will basically answer also, go a little bit into Vincent's question, when to build a prototype. We build a prototype when we know that when we have a good indication that there is already a market fit and need for our idea. There are still people joining us. And we're grateful for that. So let's jump into the first phase of the design thinking process, which is the Amplifies phase. What is empathy? Empathy is the capacity to see the world, experience the world from the point of view of another person. It is not feeling pity. It is not sympathy, where we feel pity, where we feel sorry for other people. Instead, it is that we learn how other people experience the world, what their problems and challenges in the world are, and developing a deep understanding for it without being emotionally attached to their sorrows. And my question to all of you would be, how do we listen with empathy? How do we really learn from people what they're struggling with in life and in their lives? Might it be in private life? Might it be in their work life? might be in their business, in their startup life. What do you think? How do we learn from people what their problems and challenges are? I would like to invite everyone to participate actively in this exercise, and Joseph, would you mind to mute yourself? We have some background noise from you. Thank you. So please feel free to go to the drop-down menu on the top of your screen, choose the annotate feature, and then you can enter. You can press the text button here, and you can start typing in here and writing there. Let me do a test if it's working. It is. So everyone, what do you think? Be curious and ask good questions. Right, Rin? Be curious and ask questions. Be present. Put yourself in their shoes. Exactly. Putting yourself in their shoes. Ask more questions than you have answers, probably. Active listening. Active listening, right? Survey, testing, give people situations to think about so you are all on the same page. Yes, we can give examples. Can give examples for people and see how they reply to certain situations. It's all correct. We have some coming in. Open-minded. Very good, Isabel. And what all of those answers are correct. And what I would like to add to it is that we do not try to steer people. We want to hear from people from their own point of view, which means that we're not trying to put our own thoughts into their minds. We do not ask questions that can be answered with yes or no. We are asking open-ended questions that puts people into a situation where they can tell their story from their point of view, instead of just confirming or telling us that what we think is right or wrong. Open-minded, open-ended questions, that is when we learn the most, and when we get people into telling us their stories, which also then prompts that when we talk to people, when we empathize with people, the ratio of people speaking and us as the listener listening, we listen much more than we talk when we really empathize. It is not about us, it's about them. So they have to talk by far the biggest amount in an empathetic conversation. Great stuff. Thank you for that. I'm just going to save this, and then I am clearing the screen, all drawings, and we move on. So in Amplify stage, we are learning about people's challenges and desires. In the original Amplify stage, we are not learning about how our ideas are resonating with people. We wanted to have it as open as possible. Only when we have a prototype or ideas later on in the process, we go back with those ideas and we ask people how they, or observe people how they interact with our ideas. When we start learning from people, we do it open-ended. We do not try to steer people in a certain thinking pattern or a certain direction. Because if you want to make a difference in people's lives, you need to understand what makes a difference in people's lives. And you only learn that by going in with an open mind and without putting your own thoughts first, your own ideas first. Cool. Let's see what we have in the chat. Understanding their pain points. Yes. Gaurav, understanding their pain points. Try to be aware and more away from your own preconceptions. Exactly, Clive. Yes, it's not about us. It's all about them when we want to understand our customers, our potential clients' needs. So after we got all this information, all those different problems and challenges that we learned about by empathizing with people, we're entering into the define stage. So what is the define stage? When we talk to 10 people, let's say we talk to 10 people, we probably come up with 50 problems or challenges that those people are dealing with. But if we want to make a difference in life and we want to create a sustainable business that can really make a difference in the long run, we have to find out which of those problems are actually worth solving. So I do not want to talk any challenges that people have down. All problems are, everything that people have challenges with needs to be addressed at some point. But yet, as a business owner and as a startup founder, we have to find the problems that we can actually create a sustainable business by solving them. And we do that by understanding how many people do have a specific problem and how much are they happy to pay to get that problem solved. And the multiplication of those two numbers, the number of people plus what they're happy to pay, that is our potential market that we're dealing with. Let's get, yes, Gaurav, prioritizing needs. Right, so people are most happy to spend money on solving their biggest problem. If they have 5 problems, the one that bugs them the most, that causes the most pain, they are most likely to pay money for that. So yes, we prioritize how many people do have the problem and how much are those people happy to pay to get the solution for those problems. And on a tangible example, if you have a subscription service, for example, you're looking at the software as a service product, and you identified that your service is worth $99 a year for your clients, and you have a potential market of 100,000 clients, then that's a potential market size of $9.9 million a year. And that's a quite substantial number. And that's a number, if you can validate this, that you have a potential market of nearly $10 million, that's when investors will become interested in learning more about your business. If you working on a business that can make revenue straight away, I guess most of us would be very, very happy if we would have access to a market with a volume of $10 million a year. Mike is asking a question. Hi, David. I'm curious why, how much they are happy to pay, not how much they are willing to pay on the potential market. Not how much they are willing to pay on the potential market. Previous slide. I do not quite understand the question, Mike, I have to say. So the potential market is the product of how much an individual person is happy to pay and how many people are happy to pay that.
Yeah. Hi, hello, David. Yeah. Just want to ask because it might be people are willing to pay, but they are unhappy with the price, but still willing, right? So I'm just curious whether it should be a potential market as well or not.
Sorry, Mike, the audio was a little bit bad there. I did not get that fully.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can. There's just a little bit background noise that makes it hard to understand.
Let me hold it. Very noisy here. Yeah, is it better now?
It is.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I mean, on the potential market, you say that this is how much are they happy to pay, right? But there might be somebody who, let's say, willing to pay but not really happy with the price, right? So should that be also a potential market or not?
The people that are not willing to pay a certain price point, they are not. That's basically what I mean when I say happy to pay. How much are people happy to pay? What are they willing to part with money wise? So for me, in my definition, that's the same. What they're willing to pay and what they're happy to pay.
Okay, got it. Thank you, David.
Cool. Thanks for the question. Phoebe says you want to price gauge. Yes, we have Shorty joining us as well. So jumping back here, potential market of 10 million. If you can verify that with your startup idea, with your business idea, you will attract investors to ask you questions. And what, $50 toilet paper? Yes, that it is a good business. Is it sustainable? No, not necessary unless you trust that we will have lockdown, panic sales, panic purchases on a regular base over the next 10 years, which I do not hope for any one of us, Phoebe. Did you pay that price point at any time? Good on you. Yeah, I saw single rolls for up to $3 during the second lockdown here in Melbourne. But luckily that shortage was fixed before I did run out of toilet paper. Cool, so 10 million for a small business, that's a good number. A lot of us only looking to make 200,000 or 300,000 a year to live a quality life for ourselves without having ambitions to become the next unicorn. That's fine as well. If that's your market, you probably won't attract investors because obviously investors are interested in increasing their money as well. So you have to be in the price range for a proper startup investor to at least target 2 million potential market with your first payable, sellable product. And the larger you can, the more markets you can attract or address in the future, the more likely that the investors will have faith into your business idea and want to work with you. Cool. So we found ideas, we found problems, we found a lot of problems. We identified the problems that are worth solving. And at the end of the define phase, we do not want to have more than 3 problems that are actually worth solving by having a large enough market size. If you can bring it down to 1, that's perfect. But don't end up with having more than 3 problems that you would like to solve, because otherwise in the ideation state phase, you will easily get lost and distracted by too many options and too many ideas. Now, a lot of people in the startup world, in the business world, I used to be an engineer, and in the corporate tech world as well, are thinking that creativity, having creative ideas, is an ongoing process, and we should be creative all the time. Yet, having a lot of new ideas each and every day and trying to implement them is not really efficient and effective in getting your startup or your business going, getting that cash flow, creating that cash flow. What you want to spend a lot of time in identifying the right problem to solve, and then you want to be creative, ideate with efficiency and with effectivity. And you do that by setting yourself time limits, have a plan how you can come up with ideas in a efficient way, and at the end of your process, of your ideation process, you choose just a handful of ideas that you wanna work with. An ideation phase for a regular problem before we go into validating the ideas are effective. I personally would suggest not to take more than 8 hours, one full day for the ideation process. You would like to have a team involved, and throughout the day, you want to guide the team through different phases of the ideation. I personally like a combination of 4 to 5 tools that I use throughout ideation workshop. We often start with the common brainstorming to get going. In the second phase, we opening up the space for creativity by asking for the worst possible idea, which can be an idea that is socially not viable, not acceptable, like getting, if the problem is that children are eating too many sweets, then we could come up with the worst idea that instead of giving them sweets, we're giving them cigarettes. It's a bad idea, it's the worst possible idea, but by creating that space to have those bad ideas, that actually allows us to come up with more ideas, and it breaks us out of our comfort zone. What are we allowed to say and what are we allowed to ideate? So in the early stage of the ideation process, I like to use worst possible idea. And then there are some more active ideation methods like Crazy 8, where you do drawing and in a team environment, and body storming, get out of your chairs, play your solution, incorporate it. Getting moving is always good to become more creative. The energy is flowing better. So if you run a workshop, get your team out of their chairs, have them standing around, walking around, whiteboards with ideas in different corners. So people are moving, bumping into each other, having different conversations with different people. And at the end of the day, you end up with, let's say, 50 ideas. And then it's about to choose the maximum 3 ideas that the team decides they want to follow up on in the coming sessions. So, and then we come to prototyping, Mike. And a prototype, that depends on what you define as a prototype. You are going to build a prototype in the first place to test and verify your idea. And when we talk about building a prototype, we can talk about building a high fidelity, a very expensive prototype, which takes us ages to design. But that's not what we want to do in the early stages, when we do not have verified that we're on the right track, right? So the more complex our prototypes and our designs, our builds become, the more time and resources are required to build them. So even after you verified in the Amplifies process that there is traction, that people are really liking, do like the solution that you have for them, you still start with a very low fidelity, low complexity, and very imperfect prototype to get going in the first place, because you're still learning. It's not that I have an engineering background. I used to build design machines. We often had 5 to 10 different prototypes throughout the design process of a 500,000 euro machine that we used to test different things, right? And why we did it, because we could, with prototypes, we could test earlier and validate that our ideas are working, and that's what we do with prototypes. So Vincent, you start building a prototype as soon as you're confident that you have a problem that is worth solving, and you have confirmation that from the audience, from your target customers, that they are excited about, or interested at least, in your solution. And then you start building low fidelity prototypes, which for a digital product, an app or a web site, a web's online service, can be as simple as a wireframe in the first stage. So you do not have a fully functional app, just having the wireframe and the user experience on paper can be regarded to be your first prototype, where you can already test certain interactions of your potential clients with your product and service. And then these days there are low code or no code tools where you can design certain functionalities without having to go into coding straight away. Winston is asking how to prevent confirmation bias. Would using a service be sufficient? Look at the confirmation bias. What do you wanna test? If you give your prototype to people and see how they interact with it, even if it's a wireframe, do they understand what's the user experience of the prototype, right? As long as you do not tell them what you expect them to do, you're pretty safe not getting bias in there. We find bias when we actually try to steer people in a certain directions, but that's when we do not really learn what we have to learn. Does that make sense, Vincent? Cool. So first prototypes, fast and cheap. The faster we can test, the faster we learn. It can be as simple as a sketch to get started with. For physical prototypes, cardboard is working well, is used a lot in building physical prototypes in the early stage. I'm running a little bit slow, so I will leave the question comment sections out here. We move on to tests, and we will get to questions later on in about 5 to 10 minutes time. So how do you test? How you test depends on what you want to test. And you want to test how desirable is your solution. You did that in the first place by already explaining your solution to potential customers. But the more refined your prototype gets, so as soon as people can really interact with your prototype, you will learn even more. What you definitely can learn, really start learning, is what's the user experience and what's the user experience expectation of your potential users. And what you need to learn with prototype testing is what do you have to improve to make the user experience better. Because at the end of the day, if your user experience, so on the vertical axis, we have the user experience, and good user experience is on the top. On the horizontal axis, we have desirability, and good desirability, high desirability is on the right-hand side. As long as your in one of those 3 quadrants, you need a new idea. If your idea is neither desirable nor does have a good user experience, or does have a good user experience but is does have a very low desirability, or vice versa, you probably will run into a problem making a viable business out of it. Where you want to be is in this triangle here, where you have a high desirability and a good user experience. In the perfect world, you would end up in the top right-hand corner, but anything in this triangle is a winner. If you stay there and you can validate that your idea, your solution does have a high desirability combined with a good user experience, keep going. So those are easy decisions. That's the dump zone. We are suffering, we are struggling most of the time when we can't make clear decisions. And that happens exactly here, where you're just good enough that it's hard to let go of an idea, but you're not quite good enough to make a business. If you have multiple ideas and you do not have a clear choice, let's say you have 3 ideas, 2 ideas are in the you need a new idea section in one of those 3 quadrants, and 1 is in the dump zone, I would put a little bit more effort into the idea in the dump zone and see if I can move it over that line to improve, either by improving desirability, by adding features or adjusting features, or by improving the user experience by making features easier accessible. If we have multiple ideas in the dump zone, look at what is easier to be implemented to bring over into the keep going zone. What can be realized with the least amount of effort would be my recommendation for that. And then be always aware, as Winston said, you do not want to be your testing to be biased. Rob Fitzpatrick defined the term of the mom test. If you tell your mom or friends, family, people that love you that about your idea, they will always tell you that they love your idea, and you do not learn from that what you need to learn. So you have to hear the bad stuff about your idea. That helps you to make better decisions and gets you on the right path early on. Indra is asking, what do you recommend doing when the UX and the cost to develop are in conflict? For example, removing the cognitive load for the user requires a recommendation engine. However, your burn rate and deadline doesn't give you capacity to do this. How would you design thinking in that scenario? I would try to reduce features in the first go, see what features I can take out of it to speed up my development time and reduce my costs. From the commercial side, if you can make a strong business case that those additional features are required, you can go to investors again and ask for additional funding and for a little bit more leash to spend more time on development. But investors will be very that you're not trying to be perfect in the first place. If you start with a smaller amount of people, you can probably trick by getting a product out there that does not have the cognitive the recommendation engine automated, but you would outsource it to humans that are doing that job in the early stages to buy yourself some extra time. So there are different strategies for that. Michelle Doyle is asking, first, Rolf, sorry, would you recommend a pilot in this case? Yes, a pilot is sort of an MVP. MVP is the first design that you get out. We're coming to both questions, to Rolf's and Michelle's, in a little bit. What comes after the first development cycle? It comes a second development cycle. Where you then, at the end of the second development cycle, you want to have an MVP ready to go, or you have a clear model of an MVP. So this is probably what Rolf means with a pilot. Questions to Rolf in a little bit. Sorry, I have to mute some people. David, Riley, would you mind to mute yourself? Thank you. So what comes after the first development cycle? You get traction, you have some customer validation, first prototype testing. At some point, you have to make great cash flow. You have to create revenue. You want to attract investment. That's what you do with an MVP kind of product or service. A product that is advanced enough to actually put out into the market, put it out of your development environment into the market in some capacity, either to actually attract people paying already money for it, or to attract funding from investors by proving that people are actually downloading your app, if it's an app, and are happy to use it. Yes, if you do not get paid for it, you must prove that people are excited about the product by showing that they use it. And what do you do when you have this MVP? When you have created cash flow, you reinvest that to actually get to the holy grail, to the end goal of your product development cycle. You put that into filling the gaps, what you couldn't implement in the MVP because you had to go to market, or you had to go to pitch to investors with something that was market worthy. You take that money and reinvest it to keep developing the product or service, and to hopefully become the next unicorn, or whatever your goals, your targets are. Becoming the next Airwallex, the next Canva, the next Atlassian, if that's what you're after. But at some point you have to go to market. We said it earlier, problem, people are running out of cash, and you need a prototype that is worth getting out to the users in the real world, either to create sales, if you can charge for it, or to attract investors by showing them that people are happy to download your product, even if they never heard of it before, or they never touched it before. Cool. I think I run a little bit over, but that's basically it from my end. We're coming to Q&A in a bit. I just would like to invite you that if you have any more questions, you're interested in innovation coaching personally, in your private life, in your startup life, in your business life, that's things that I'm offering to my clients. I'm offering bespoke workshops from half day, couple of hours, to 5-day design sprints for teams. And it can be startup teams, that can be teams in non-governmental or government organizations, and that can be teams in corporations. I'm happy to talk to you about that. We're also going to launch a new pre-accelerator program for startups and for startup founders and small business founders. And I'm happy to talk to you about all of that. We'll drop my personal details into the chat as well, so you can get directly in touch. And otherwise, please feel free to shoot me a message at any time, an email on davidh@thinkin.com.au.